Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Daryl Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Hi there. Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Daryl Scott. Going to be a good show today. We've got a man who as we were talking before we got started, I just wonder how he does everything. So let me tell you this. Right now, our guest has produced hits for Kim Scott, Paul Atherton, Blake Aaron, Rebecca Jade, and so many more people. It would take another hour and a half to name everybody that he has worked with. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Greg Manning. Greg, how you doing?
Hey, Dale, I'm excellent. Thanks for having me. This
Not a
is going to be fun.
Not a problem, sir. I really hope so. So I want to get started this way. I'm always interested in I call them the travel plans of the artist. You're born in Nigeria. You
Yes.
moved to Switzerland. I know that wasn't a cab ride. And then you wind up going to the United States. So my first question is, uh, when did you start listening or have an appreciation for this smooth jazz, contemporary jazz music?
Oh, excellent question. It's really kind of funny because I started to become interested in music kind of late.
Mm,
I grew up in Switzerland, and at that time, everybody in school, they had their favorite singer, their favorite group, and I was kind of like, didn't really impact me. I was like, yeah, music is okay. But then one night, and I'll never forget it, and it's the reason why I became a musician. One night on the radio, I heard Stevie Wonder's "Isn't She Lovely?"
hmm
And that song changed my life. To this day, I'm not really sure what happened, but something clicked, and I was like, "Wow, what is this?" I was just so intrigued by everything, by the sounds, lyrics, of course, his voice. I ran to the record store to get his record, "Songs in the Key of Life," and that album anyway. That's one of the
hmm
best albums ever
Ever.
recorded. But the bug bit me then right there, and never left me.
So what what was your beginning instrument? Have you always been a keyboardist or did you start with another instrument?
I'm a one trick pony keyboards, but I actually started on drums.
I I am not a musician. I'm always amazed at manual dexterity and all of this sort of stuff. Because somebody asked me, "Well, Daryl, what do you play?" Nothing, nothing at all. And then if I were to play like guitar or bass, I'd play left-handed. So what I got Jimi Hendrix, Chris Walker, Wayman Tisdale, and that
Jonathan Butler.
Jonathan Butler, and that's like it. But for you all who play multiple musics, and I see you have a keyboard behind you, so I'm guessing you have a home studio. What, how do you develop those manual skills? Because you've got each hand is doing something, and if each foot is doing something, and you're singing or you're doing this. What's the learning process of all of that?
Nothing happens from one day to the next. You got to be very patient, and it's like any other skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And they say it takes 10,000 hours to really master anything. And I feel like it's basically the same in music. Of course, there's like innate talent. Some people they maybe only need 5,000 hours, but there's always work involved, always. And I think when it's really your passion, when you love doing it, it's not really work. It just comes naturally.
So you're growing up in Switzerland. What's the music that you're listening to that is inspiring you while you're in Switzerland? Because don't get me wrong, I've never been to Switzerland, not
Yes.
at all. Can't other than I might be dating myself, but all I can think of is ABBA, and I'm not sure if they're from Switzerland.
They're from
Um,
Sweden.
Sweden, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
As I
yeah,
was
yeah.
thinking about, I'm going, no, Joe, they're from Sweden. Don't say that.
Yeah, no, no, it's all good.
But what what are you what are you
No,
listening to? What is
Daryl, I'm going to help you out because that's the funny thing about Switzerland. The country is known for chocolate, Swiss cheese, banking, but not really for music.
right?
And there's a reason for that. There isn't. I mean, I don't know. There's other music, but the music that I started to get interested in wasn't from Switzerland. It was American music. And it's actually fun you mentioned this because, growing up as a musician in Switzerland, becoming more known, more active, people started telling me, Greg, we like what you're doing, but your music sounds too American. Yeah, right, right.
Right. Okay.
And to this day, I'm not really sure what they were trying to tell me because, I mean, American music conquered the world. Everybody's listening to American music. And to me, it's kind of silly to say American music or Swiss music or Swedish music. To me, music is music. But just, for my own taste, what I gravitated to was basically R&B and jazz.
Hmm.
But first, definitely R&B. Stevie, Earth, Wind and Fire, all those great singers, bands.
Okay. Now you
But
want to.
but I never really. It's funny. I never really listened to Swiss music. We have like Swiss traditional music
Right.
that is very diatonic. It's like three chords, and it never really interested me.
So you're in Switzerland. What made you want to come? Even though I think I know the answer to this question, what made you want to gravitate from Switzerland to the United States?
Well, the more interested I got in music, I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more. And in the beginning, I was very interested in film scoring. And at that time, in the 90s, early 90s, there were no film scoring schools in Europe.
Hmm.
The only school was Berklee College of Music in Boston. And that's where I applied to, and luckily they accepted me. I got a scholarship, and in nine now I'm dating myself. In 1990, I went to Berklee College of Music. I started the curriculum there, and actually, it's life is funny. It was a very scary experience for me. I'll never forget traveling. Flying from Switzerland to Boston. I arrived there. It was Switzerland is cold, but
Hmm.
Boston was even colder.
Yeah.
The wind chill, I just couldn't believe it. But I had jet lag, everything. But I went to the school and they had cellars with practice rooms, the
Hmm.
basement basically, with dozens of practice rooms. And the first night I went down there, and I just went from door to door and I listened to piano players. And Daryl, I was ready to go home right there and then.
Really?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 18-year-old guys, girls from all over the world, just burning, just burning. And I was like, what am I supposed to do here? But I always say this, at the end of the day, your own talent, your interest, your studies, it will get you only that far. I think the core of everything is really the love for music. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how fast you play, how fancy you play. At least for me, it's music is an expression of who you are.
Right. So you graduate from Berkeley. I said
I
some.
funny, I never did. I
Well,
I think
don't
I think I have 7 credits left, but I never graduated.
don't feel bad. I've had probably or know of at least, I don't know, eight, maybe 10 folks that have been on the show who went to Berklee and didn't necessarily graduate, but they
Right.
are outstanding musicians. And if you need somebody to get you a class book or get some classes, I know a guy.
Okay.
Um, John's gonna kill me. Um, so you leave Berklee and you go to LA? Is this true?
No, after Berklee, actually, that's why I didn't finish. One night I got a call from a Swiss comedian, very very well known, very famous at the time, and for some reason he heard my music somewhere in Switzerland,
Hmm.
and his name is Marco Rima, and Marco said, "Hey man, I really like what you're doing. I'm thinking about writing a musical." And we were talking, and I thought, yeah, there's always so much talk going on in
Right.
our
Yes.
industry, and
Yes.
nothing ever happens. Daryl, 1 week later, the guy stood at my doorstep in Boston, and he was like, let's go, let's write the musical."
Wow.
And we did. So I thought, I'm taking a hiatus and just go to Switzerland for a while to do this.
Right.
I never went back because the musical really took off, and I ended up touring with that particular musical called Keep Cool for 4 years. We toured Switzerland and Germany. So that's the reason I never went back to Berklee.
It's a little more than a short vacation, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so I get what you did, and I understand why you did it. So how did you get into, we'll call it, this jazz genre and get this stuff going? And I see all these people that you work with. You have to create a reputation that you are good, that you can follow orders, that you can be taught, that you can fit in to what they're doing. How do you accomplish that? I'm always interested in why people call you, call the artist. I've talked to a few producers or engineers or whatever you want to call it. I talked to Paul Brown. I can't believe the number of songs that Paul Brown is on that you never hear of this person. And you're the same way. There's all of these songs. And in the small print, I can find your name. And I'm like, what? What? I got 10 names here? Why do these 10 people call you? What is your reputation like?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think it has taken me, just to finish the other story about traveling. So after Switzerland, there's no real music industry, so I moved to Atlanta.
Hmm.
I was in Atlanta for 5 years, and that's when I started playing with Jonathan Butler. And JB opened a lot of doors for me, and I was his musical director for almost 10 years. And through playing with him, touring, I met a lot of people. I met a lot
Hmm.
of people. Mark Antoine, my first tour, I'll never forget this. In 98, my first tour called Guitars and Saxes was with Jonathan Butler, Mark Antoine, Richard Elliott,
Richard
and
Elliott.
Kirk Whalum.
Yes.
It doesn't get any
That
better.
that's
I'm,
not a
I'm
bad first tour.
That's not a bad first tour. I'm still pinching myself. But to answer your other question, I was a sideman for so many years, for like, I don't know, for like 15 years. And I think by just being immersed in contemporary jazz and smooth jazz, I have that kind of sound in me. It's like second nature to me. And in 2014, so more than 10 years ago, I released my first official solo project.
Hmm.
And I got help with a lot of people like Mindi Abair, who was also in Jonathan's band. She was the featured artist on my first single, and
Hmm.
that helped me a lot just to get heard. And I think overall, why do people call me? Uh, I think, it's a little bit of talent. I
Right.
always say in my case, it's probably 10% talent and 90% hard work. I
Hmm.
think at the end of the day, people call me because they know I will go the extra mile, the extra 2 miles to get it right. I never cut any corners when it comes to, songwriting, recording, the quality, producing, mixing. I always want to do my best. As a matter of fact, I think I'm incapable of releasing something that I think, yeah, it's maybe 95% done. I just cannot do it. And yeah, it is a lot of it's a lot of hard work. And I think my sleep schedule has
Yeah.
really suffered over the years, you know.
So before we continue, every now and then I want people to hear some of the work that you've done. So let's listen to "Come On Over" by our guest on the Jazz Flyte Podcast, Mr. Greg Manning. Let us come on over from our guest today, Greg Manning, on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Daryl Scott. Greg, your career is developing. We talked in the beginning, so you're the side man, you're the musical director. Still never totally understood what the music director does, but I get it. But and then you start doing your own stuff. But the part I want to get to and I want to talk about is you've now started your own record label. Talk about the process of going from sideman, soloist to your own record label, because you got three sets of pressures. That's all I'll say. Um, so
Yes.
talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. I never really look at it as pressures. Maybe the pressure comes afterwards, but I always look at these things you just mentioned as opportunities.
Hmm.
It's just, other opportunities to help people or get my music out there. And the main reason why I founded my label was actually helping artists. The first release, the first guy I signed is Patches Stewart, Michael Patches
Yes,
Stewart, phenomenal trumpet player. He
yes,
played with everybody. He played
yeah.
with Quincy Jones, Al Jarreau,
Al
Marcus
Jarreau.
Miller.
Hmm.
I could probably mention names for 30 minutes. But I started working with Patches on other people's projects where he was just a featured artist. And
Hmm.
he came to Vegas, he came to my studio, and I was like, man, this guy is really great. And we had a good chemistry going on. And he is known as a sideman, but not
Yeah.
really as an artist. And in my mind, I was like, wow, this is kind of, I was a sideman and now I'm an artist. I think Patches should be an artist because he's so lyrical on his horn. And that was actually my main motivation initially, to have a label to help him being an artist.
It's funny. I saw that release and I saw Patches. Okay, it's been maybe 152 years ago, but I think he and Michael Paulo were playing with
Al
Al
Jarreau.
Jarreau. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
And, and,
They
and
were the
it's,
horn section.
yes. And it was one of those things you go, you don't think of it back then that this guy just needs to do his own thing. You don't necessarily want to break up that band because they sound so good, but yet and still you want this guy to step off to the side where he has his own stuff. So, and don't get me wrong, we're going to try to get Patches on this show too. Um,
Great, great.
what when you're producing somebody else's record or when you're the head of that record label, what are the discussions you and that artist are having to create that sound? Because I'm guessing you have an idea based upon what they want. Is there ever an opportunity where you two might disagree, or if you have a disagreement, how do we massage that over to where it becomes a hit?
Yeah, I mean, so far so good. I've never really had a disagreement with my artists, and I mean, a hit. I do not know how to create a hit.
Hmm.
That sounds maybe strange because I've had so many, but I don't really do formulas, And my thing is, and I think that that keeps my career as a producer in place. I don't think I have like no, let's take it back. I think me, Greg Manning, as an artist, I do have a particular sound. There are certain things that I always do in my music that I really like. But I'm trying to, when I'm a producer, I'm trying to serve the artist. I never want artists that I produce to sound like they just played on a Greg Manning track. That would be a disservice to them in my view. So I want to bring out the best in the artists that I see, and I want to enhance those parts. And those are the discussions that we have. I try to hone in, zoom in on particular things that I see and hear, and I think I just want to feature those things. And coming back to a hit, I really sounds funny when I say, but I don't know how to write a hit. But the only thing that I know is when I write music and it touches me, I feel something, then I'm pretty confident that it translates to other people.
Now, so many things running through this small pea brain of mine. You've toured all over the world.
Yes.
What's your favorite spot?
Cape Town, South Africa.
Obvious question is why?
It reminds me. Well, I went there with Jonathan Butler,
Mm-hmm.
and he is from down
Yeah.
there. So he introduced me to a lot of cool places. Well, first of all, Cape Town is almost like a mini version of LA. It's really beautiful, right at the ocean there, and it has a vibrant music scene. I mean, the amount of talent down there is just it's incredible. The weather is nice. I really like the people down there. I think it's a beautiful spot. Very, very nice.
So your studio, I'm not going to give away where you live. Your studio is in Vegas.
Yes.
You got 9,000 distractions. I'm going to say within a half minute, within a half hour ride. How do you get your artists when they come to your studio to focus on music and not focus on going to those places?
Yeah. That's an easy answer. We have like Vegas has like I think 20 million people coming in a year,
Mm-hmm.
but the people that come to me, they want to get the music done.
Okay.
So those things are not really. And I mean, I live here, but I hardly ever go to the Strip. And most people that live in Vegas or Henderson, they never go to the Strip. It's really more of a tourist thing.
Okay. Can't get out of that one, can I? Um, let's listen to another song that you've done. This is, I want a song for peace, which also features Mr. Kirk Whalum.
Oh, one
How
of
did,
my favorite songs.
how did you come up with this? What is the inspiration for this song and the inspiration for getting Kirk to be involved?
Well, very, thank you for asking this. A very timely question because I wrote this song at the start of the war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I was I was just so down, so shocked by this aggression, and I just needed to find a way, a place to deal with it. And in my case, it's always through music. And I wanted to have a really, really emotional, really soulful sax player.
Mm-hmm.
And
He
we
is.
all know
Yeah.
who that is.
Yeah. Yeah. He was on the show and he talked about Kirk's far more intelligent than you think. He's got a way of talking about things. And we were talking about something and he says, Gerald, you have this. And I go, I'm not sure what it is. He goes, all those gray hairs on your face means knowledge. I'm going, wow, I never really thought of it that way. He goes, you got more knowledge than most people. I said, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But like I said, let's listen to Song for Peace by Greg Manning and Kirk Whalum on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. That is Song for Peace by Greg Manning. That's him. I never know which way to point because I don't know where you guys see it here. And this guy named Kirk Whalum. Um, is there a story behind this with you and Kirk and everything?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, he was actually, on my very first tour in America, and we connected many, many decades ago, but kind of lost, contact. And then through A Song for Peace, we kind of reconnected. And luckily, the song did pretty well. And after that, his manager called me, and I'll never forget that call. She said, "Greg, would you be interested maybe in producing Kirk's next record?" And I said, I'm not sure. I need to call my lawyer and work. No, I'm just kidding.
Right?
Of course, I was like, yeah, it's a dream come true. And it was just a fantastic experience. So I had the pleasure of producing Epic Cool for Kirk Whalum. And he stood right here. He was right here in my studio.
The interesting thing about this music from all the shows I've done and all the people I've met via Zoom and everything, there's so many cool people that at some point you want to sit in like I'll say a smoky club and just have some music playing in the background and just have a conversation. That's the thing. There's so many. When we interviewed Kirk, we missed one time. He was in an airport. He only had 10 minutes. I said, fine, whatever. Call me when you get home and get settled. And then you sit down and I understand people can't always listen to a 40-minute show. I get it. But Kirk, I turn the microphone off and he goes, let's just talk. And there's so many things that we talk about. He's so philosophical. He's got a great feeling for the world and the world around us. And there are so many other musicians that are like that. How do you cultivate these relationships that you all get into? Because some of them are, I just can't, I can see you and Kirk sitting down backstage at a show and forgetting that you're supposed to be on next because you're just having a fun conversation.
Yeah, we actually text quite a lot, and we have some yeah, I would say really deep conversations about life, about purpose of life, purpose of music, very very spiritual topics. And I really believe, at the core of music, it's not about pitch, it's not about the right melody, right scales. It is a very spiritual, almost like a energetic thing. It's a certain kind of energy. Rock music has a certain kind of energy.
Hmm.
Jazz has a certain kind of energy. Classical music, different kind of energy. But it's to this day, music is something very mysterious to me. And sometimes people ask me, how do you compose? How do you write a melody? To this day, I'm not sure how to answer that. I hear music, but why do I choose certain notes over others, certain melodies? I don't know. I
That is,
don't know.
that is the thing that has always amazed me. That we throw this term out there called genius. I have many different levels of genius. Basketball players are genius because for some silly reason, they can run, jump, and they can work their body through four or five other people to get a basket. At what point do you think of that? That you need to go left or go right or switch to the left hand or go back to the right hand. When it comes to musicians, this office that I'm in, there's a lot of music in there. I've been doing this a long time. CDs. I still have albums, and there's R&B stuff that way. There's some R&B stuff that way. There's jazz on the rest of the walls. But when you listen to yourself, Jonathan Butler, I have Jonathan's first record introducing Jonathan Butler. I showed it to him. He just looked at me and said, "You're old." Like, thanks a lot. But you start to listen to
I
some of
have
this.
that record as well.
Do you?
Oh, absolutely. I
Um,
ran to the store in Switzerland to get it.
he, but you listen to some of this stuff, and I use him as an example because what you heard on that first record is totally, I don't want to say totally different. Still hear influences of the early stuff on his new stuff. But I know this is me, and I don't know if you're like this. So like I said, there's probably 10,000 pieces of music in this room. I could start at one, play all 10,000. You wouldn't be able to see the carpeting because all I would do is just throw the stuff on the floor. But that makes you think of something, but it makes you, I have a, I have workout music, which people would go, you listen to that? I will admit this. So there's a song by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers called Running Down a Dream. If you're on an elliptical machine to try to keep up with that tempo, it, it's uh, it's 3 minutes and 38 seconds. Yeah, I've been doing this too long, but it's that's what it is. But when I want to sit back and have comfortable time and just listen and be reading a book or something like that, it's Grover, it's Kenny, it's Najee. Excuse me for looking around the room. It's Yellow Jackets. It's Marilyn Scott, who people probably really haven't heard of. I have so much unheard of music, but then I also have a mint copy of Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, which
Of
the
course, of
which
course.
the only person that's touching that is me. So I don't care if you come by my house. I'm not telling you where it is. But how do you manage your time? Because you have your stuff, you have the stuff that you're doing that you're producing, and now you throw in this record label thing where you've got to manage careers, you got to tell them what to do, you got to get with this. I'm sure you want to, I don't know how big a roster you want, but you're still trying to recruit people to come to your label. Once again, I go back to how do you manage your time?
Yeah. Good question. But I think nowadays, technology really, really helps. Maybe 10 years ago, definitely 20 years ago, what I'm doing, all these different things right now, it would not be possible because it would take me a long time just to connect with an artist on the
Hmm.
road would be, you would have to almost send a telex like 20 years ago. Now I just pick up the phone and I mean the world is available on your phone through social media, all this stuff. Technology can be amazing, but it can also be a huge distraction. The funny thing is, to me, I'm trying to be very aware of time, how I use it. When when I go to the gym, I mean, maybe you have the same experience. I go to the gym and I see all these people, instead of working out, they're on the machines looking
Yeah,
at their phones.
looking at their phones. Yes,
And now I'm like, what are you guys doing?
right.
You're supposed to be here and work out and do one thing. So I think my thing is, when I do something, I try to be there 100%. And I've been a practicing Buddhist for a while now,
Mhm.
and I think the mindfulness aspect of the practice is important. It just keeps me grounded, and it keeps me focused on certain things.
I don't even take my phone into the gym. It's in my car. So I really hope for that 40 minutes to an hour that no one, but don't get me wrong, as soon as I get in the car and there's a bottle of water waiting for me, I look at my phone to see who's called.
Yeah, yeah.
Greg, Greg, what do you got going on that's new? Tell us, surprise us with something that we can look forward to.
Well, I mean, the newest thing, literally, it is my label. I have I actually want to keep it a small boutique label.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think, expansion is always the best thing. I really want to keep it small, just a handful of artists, but really curate the music and pay
Hmm.
attention to everything that's coming out. And that's my main focus. And surprise you. Well, uh, most people probably don't know that I love hiking. And when people think of Vegas, they think of, gambling, the strip, all this kind of stuff. But a lot of people don't know, if you drive 20 minutes out of
Right.
the strip, you go
Yes.
to like Red Rock, that
Yes.
area. It's beautiful, beautiful hiking territory. I mean, you can hike for days out there.
I have been to Vegas. I won't admit that. But I spend more time outside. I, the last time I was there, wife bought some flip-flops and they melted. They melted. I kid you not. She's walking the next thing you know, she's like, these things are sticky. Well, never mind. But I think it's a great area to be in. I've got many friends out there. How can our folks keep up with what Greg Manning has going on? Are you in social media and that sort of stuff?
Yes, a little bit, a little bit. I have my own website, my artist website. It's gregmanningmusic.com. And then there's a new website for my label. And my label is called Equity Records. And the website is called equityrecordsmusic.com. That's where you find, the artist roster and the latest news about the label. And I'm also on Facebook. I think it's called Greg Manning Music Official, something like that.
Okay. Well, we will add you to our social media, whatever you do.
Thank you.
We will take it and put it on our social media. Greg, this has been an absolute pleasure. You're a great guy. You're a busy guy. So I thank you for the time uh, that you've allowed us to kind of peek into your world and let folks know what is going on.
Of
Thanks for
course.
thanks for listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. Again, thanks to our guest, Mr. Greg Manning. If you have questions or comments or you just want to drop me a message, you can go to jazzflyte@gmail.com. So until next week, we'll talk to you then and keep listening to jazz. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Daryl Scott.